So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Build It to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth and life starts every single day with a mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale and compound your wealth and life so you can give more all the way to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swarts. In each and every episode, I am joined by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, and billionaires, and they share their insight secrets with us so we can all scale up, compound our wealth in our life to make a bigger impact. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of New Jersey, and he is on a mission today to bring a ton of value about how to basically build your company to exit. We're going to talk about scaling. We're going to talk about systems. We're going to talk about making sure you're understanding financial performance, truly financial performance. He's got an amazing website you can go to right now called bizscore.ai, and it's a BizScore application that will give you clarity, a little more clarity, and turn your chaos into clarity for as a business owner. Please welcome to the show with me, Mr. Teddy Slack. Teddy, how we doing?
I'm good, Brett. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing phenomenal. And, over the past 20 years, you built, 5 service-based businesses from scratch to 7 figures within 12 months. And you most recently scaled and exited a home service business for a 5X multiplier. Man, you got a cool background. What else about your story do we want to know before we get started?
Yeah, so that's basically it. I mean, home services is kind of my thing. I've been in home services for 20 years. I grew up in the trenches, I like to say, because I grew up with an entrepreneur father who, at the age of like 4 or 5, used to take me to the job site and leave me at the foreman. That was his way of spending time with me, So that's how I learned, basically growing up in the trenches. And then I helped start a home service business division inside of his company, so a family business. And I launched that in 2005. That was successful pretty quickly. I worked there for about 5 years, and then I wound up leaving the family business, and I went off on my own. And since that time, I've started and scaled 5 service businesses. The most recent one I just exited was in 2022.
Fantastic. And for our listeners, also getting to know you for the first time, tell us that one story on the job site. I know for me, it was my brother. He was on that Bobcat, and he pulled it forward over, like, he was pouring dirt into like this, I don't know if it was a pool or whatever. My dad was building like a foundation, but it was about a 15-foot drop. And all of a sudden he's tilted on his edge, Teddy, and like he's screaming, and I'm like the kid watching, and my dad's running over there. He's like, just pull it back. And my dad and brother's freaking out, crying, and he's probably, because he's probably like 10 years old. That's the reality. Like my dad had him on the Bobcat. I mean, it was a boy's dream, right? I'm like 8, like, oh my gosh, what was that like one like amazing story where you're just like, you'll never forget it?
Well, so we had a job where we did a big excavation. So we did residential oil tank services, environmental cleanups for homes in New Jersey. So a lot of the homes were heated with underground heating oil tanks that are made out of steel. So what happens over 15, 20, 30 years, they corrode and they leak into the ground. So now it's an environmental nightmare. So we come in and we excavate all that contaminated soil out, and then we clean it up and replace it with clean soil. One job in particular, I remember it was like, basically, I don't know, let's see, it was back in February. So I left. It was on a Friday night. I think it was Valentine's Day, and I left early. I left the crew there. I was like, listen, I'm going to go. All you got to do is backfill and just compact it. Well, it was a little bit wet. So as they're compacting it, they're driving back and forth. It was pushing the soil underneath it. It literally pushed the wall of the foundation through the house, filled the basement up with soil. And I got that call on the way home. It was about an hour away, and they were like, you got to come back. We got a major problem. So I had to run up there, and we had to structurally support the house and rebuild the wall. It was a nightmare on Friday night, man. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That is a nightmare, but everything turned out okay. You're able to, able to salvage it all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We had to rebuild everything, obviously, and make it better. And the client wasn't happy, but we made it right,
Yeah, you make it right. Yeah, awesome. Well, great, Teddy. Let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is basically building to exit, and scaling. It's like what is the number one secret that you found over your years of helping others and also doing it yourself to be able to build your business to exit?
Yeah, so 2018, I really focused on my main business, which was residential oil tank services. And that's when I started to read a lot of books and educate myself and really learning how to run a business for value purposes as opposed to running like a lifestyle business. So, growing up, I learned from my father, who was very hardworking, just really just gritty, just hustler mentality, wear work boots until he was in his late 60s, out in the field, operating heavy equipment, driving trucks, did very well for himself. He bought a lot of commercial property, environmentally impacted property. So I learned from him, right? So, but he didn't have that business acumen. He didn't learn from anybody. He just started out from zero and grew into what he did. So I started educating myself and reading a lot of books and learning okay, hustle, you can get you so far, but when you actually learn how to drive business for value purposes, right? You getting yourself out of the day-to-day, you're putting systems and processes in place. That's when I really started to take off, and that's how I was able to scale my last business to 1.6 million in profit, and we sold that for 5 times multiple.
Excellent. I love it. So having a mindset of value purposes versus just a lifestyle. So take us to the nitty gritty of that. Like, what was the moment you're like, okay, this is what I got to shift. This is my roadblock or my mindset or my habit. And now I've got to get into this other side of value purposes.
Yeah, so over the years, I started a lot of different companies simultaneously, which I definitely do not recommend anybody do. And that's one of the things I had to learn, right? Focus is super important. You can't go in too many different directions. And in the beginning, I was chasing top line revenue, right? So that's all I cared about. It's like more revenue, no matter how, what it took to get to that revenue. And that was multiple companies in my situation. And it was multiple companies in multiple industries simultaneously, which is, listen, Elon Musk does it, but we're not all Elon Musk, right? So and if you don't have the right systems, processes, and people in place, it's pretty much impossible. So, and I found that out the hard way. I started a business out in Ohio around the fracking industry. I was approached by a couple of guys that had contracts with publicly traded fracking companies that were doing the drilling. They just needed to move the dirty, contaminated water, and they had the employees, they had the drivers, they just needed the equipment. So I signed a personal guarantee for $1 million equipment loan. And that just didn't go well. It went well as far as revenue, and we were successful right away. We were generating $300,000 a month in revenue. But what happened was I didn't have enough cash behind me to basically keep up with all the bills, right? You have to pay the drivers, you got to pay the insurance, you got to pay the disposal fees, because these publicly traded companies were taking 90, 120 days to pay me. So I needed to float that money. I needed about $150,000 a month, and I just didn't have it. And I had to shut that operation down. And that's when I had to reset everything and start learning about really how to run businesses the right way,
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it takes learning the hard way. By the way, if you want to learn more about Mr. Teddy Slack, you can go to bizscore.ai. Take a 2-minute quiz to find out if your business is ready for a deep dive assessment that exposes where the real money is hiding. And so keep going here, right? So so that's a big lesson to learn there. What was it? Was there another one that you was like a pivotal moment where you're like, okay, I got to take this next step, whether it be for the systems or the processes or the people that brought you more to the value way of building things versus just the lifestyle business?
Yeah, so like I said, when I had all these companies simultaneously running at the same time, I had 70 employees. I was in a couple different industries at the same time. Plus, I was trying to leverage trade Bitcoin at the time, and I was flipping houses. I had flipped 24 homes in 24 months. I had a ton of subcontractors working with me, and I had a design team. I had architects working with me. So I had all these companies going at the same time with all these side projects. And what I learned was okay, we need to now focus and educate ourselves. Let's educate ourselves on how to really run a company. And that's when I started to learn okay, it's not just about how much money you take home, right? In paycheck and dividends and stuff. It's how do you really build a company for value purposes? So that's when I learned about getting myself out of the day-to-day. And I was like, okay, number one is value driver is you cannot be involved in the business, right? Because if you're involved in the day-to-day, who's going to buy that business, right? Because it depends on you. There's no real value there. So I didn't know that growing up. I was involved in everything. I thought that was the right thing to do. I worked, 12, 15 hours a day. I thought that was the right thing to do. And so when I learned about that value driver, I was like, all right, well, how do I get myself out of the day-to-day? I don't just stop coming to work. I actually have to build systems and processes. I made video recordings and SOPs for every single process in my business. And I was able to hand that off to either a virtual assistant or a person in the office or a person out in the field. And I slowly got myself out of the day to day. I mean, I was the guy who was on the excavator. I was driving dump trucks. Then I would come home and I would do the counting. I'd be in the books with the bookkeeper. And, I was doing a little bit of everything. I would do the sales on the road. I was involved with too much of the business. And that's when I learned to really, okay, this is a different way to do it. And maybe I'm not taking as much home in a paycheck, but I'm building the value of this company, which ultimately was able to get me a bigger paycheck in the end once everything was set up and it wasn't depending on me, which was amazing,
Oh, so amazing, right? But it's so hard when you're in the middle of it all, right? Because you're thinking, gosh, if I slow this down, or if I give this piece up, or if I relinquish, maybe I feel like I'm taking 2 steps back, and then 1 step forward. And it takes time to find and recruit and train and coach and pour into, talent. What's been the number one way that you have been able to find A players for the businesses you built?
So, the number one thing that I did that helped out, and I highly recommend everybody who's listening to run this exercise. So basically it's a time audit, right? So this is one of the books I read, Buy Back Your Time by
Dan Martell. Yeah.
By Dan Martell. Yes. Yeah. So he's an amazing author, amazing guy. I follow him, but I read that book and I was like, wow, I got to run this exercise. So a 15-minute time audit, what that means is for every 15 minutes over a 2-week period, I wrote down exactly what I was doing, whether that's writing an email, taking a sales call, doing the accounting, going out to a job site to do a site visit, or whatever that I was doing over that time period. Every 15 minutes, I don't care if it was talking to the girl in the office about whatever. I wrote it all down, and then over 2 weeks, I went back and I looked at it, and I said, all right, out of these things that I was doing over the last 2 weeks, what do I hate the most? And that's when I started to put systems and processes, video SOPs together, and I started handing that off to people. Because a lot of people think like, oh, well, I don't have money in my business to hire a full-time person to take over what I do. Well, the thing is, when you break down your time, you see that there's certain things that you don't need a full-time person, right? You could hire a virtual assistant a lot of times, and you can hand one task off for that virtual assistant, or maybe an admin girl in your office can handle that one task. But you have to put the system and process together in order to train that person the correct way. So it's not so much finding the A player, because if you think you're going to find an A player to replace you completely, I just never had any luck with that, to be honest. It was finding the people that were A players for the specific tasks that I need to hand off. And then eventually the last thing I gave up was sales. I did need to find an A player for that sales role. That was the last role that I gave up. And I did find someone that was full-time in-house that I had taken 6 months to train. So it took time, but then I eventually handed off that role. So I was completely out of the day-to-day. So when I went to exit, the business was not depending on me at all.
Oh, I love it, Sadie. That makes so much sense. Tons of wisdom there. So a couple things: time audit every 15 minutes. No matter what you're doing, you're writing down what you're doing, right? And then at the end of the 2 weeks, say, okay, what do I hate the most? And then number 3, like, hey, I'm just hired even just one person, even part-time, to take that one task or that 2 tasks or whatever that is thing, right? And you just keep doing that until eventually, like, okay, I'm freeing up. How did you make sure you backfilled your time versus just jumping right back into what you were doing before? Like, take us through that piece of the discipline.
Yeah, so this is back in 2020 when I started this exercise. And one of the things that I started to do, because I was like, all right, well, I'm working on higher level stuff. I'm tracking KPIs. I'm tracking all the numbers now. But there was still a lot more time in the day because I was giving up all of my responsibilities, right? So I'm like, what can I do to drive more revenue into this business? Because I was obsessed at that point with EBITDA and growing the value of the business, which is a multiple of EBITDA, right? So I'm like, how can I drive more value to the bottom line, which is also going to get me a bigger multiple? And I became obsessed with coming up with different ideas. So I changed the pricing structure in my industry. I went from a line item plus type of deal to a flat rate, which nobody in the industry was doing, which increased my closing percentage and then increased the profit margins at the end of the day. So I started to work on higher level things like that. And then on top of that, I hired a full-time videographer, which I never did this before, but I had a full-time videographer follow me around. I started going out to the job site again, which the job site, it wasn't a requirement for me to go out there, but I went out there to make the content, so which I could then put on YouTube, run ads on YouTube, and then really the jobs just started coming in. And then people would watch all the content, my clients, and be like, oh, the guy with the beard, I seen all his content. I want to hire that guy. I want to talk to him. And then the closing rate went through the roof. The leads went through the roof. And we went from basically like 2 million to 4 million in revenue very quickly in like a 15-month period.
I absolutely love it. Okay, talk about full-time videographer, because I've actually thought about this, and this is kind of one of our big goals for 2026. It's like becoming a media company, right? And
yes.
You're like, okay, so walk us through that transition, and just you rip the Band-Aid off. You're like, all right, just show up on Monday. We're going to go to these 3 job sites, and you're just going to record and start creating the content. I mean, like, what was this like? How much planning went into this versus just get in the truck and let's just go and then let's just knock it out. I'm just kind of curious and are you still doing that, by the way?
Yeah, so I read They Ask You Answer by Mark Sheridan, which really kind of just set that thought in my mind, like, all right, I got to start making content. And the way that I did it was, so at the time I was utilizing Ring Central for my phone system, so it recorded all the calls. So I would take all the sales calls. At that time AI didn't exist, so I would transcribe all those calls. I sent it to a virtual assistant, and I said, remove all the questions that the clients ask when they call in. So it was a manual thing. I couldn't just run it through ChatGPT back then. And then I pulled all the questions that the clients were asking, and I was like, all right, let's start making content around this. And then I start turning those content into episodes. So I had him come around. The videographer would come to the job site. We would come up with these episodes in reference to a lot of the questions that the customer's asking and their biggest concerns. And I would just talk about it as the jobs were happening, and I would explain what was going on. And it really just hit. And the clients loved it. It was amazing. I mean, honestly, every contractor I talked to today, I highly, highly, highly try to convince them to do the content. I'm telling you, it's such a game changer in so many ways. Another way that it really affected my business is talent. You talk about hiring A players. People start to come to my business because they're like, I saw your YouTube. I want to work for you. You have any job openings? Which I wasn't expecting that, but I did get talent that came through the door as well because they want to be part of what I was building at the time,
Yeah, I love this. All right. I think I'm going to take this up, take the leads that we're already recording these calls. They're private, but take it and then you say, AI, extract all the questions from this. And then get the list, every week of whatever it is, the top 10 or whatever it is. Yes. And then you just literally go out and make content on that. And then eventually it's like, I have had times when people show up like, hey, I just watched 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of your videos over the weekend. I'm ready to go. I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yep. Exactly. You're selling them already.
And I was playing basketball and I was doing all this other stuff. So this is good, right? And by the way, it's better for them too, because it's a let's call it sales pressure approach, yes. Right? Where not that we're trying to put pressure on you to do sales, but still there's a whole dynamic of, there, but if they can just watch it, record, and rewind it and see and really digest it before they show up, it just feels like it's a better experience for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a full-time sales rep. I mean, 24/7 it's selling for you because it's already it's answering all the questions that are typically asked. So 100% now with AI, it's a must do. It's so simple to do it now because you get the transcriptions, put it through AI, get the questions, and you're already making content with you just go in there and just talk to the camera and then put it on your website, and you can now make it searchable with AI and everything. I mean, it's absolutely crazy what you could do right now,
Love it. Teddy Slacker, we're speaking with him, and you can find and learn more about him by going to bizscore.ai, bizscore.ai. Okay, so what haven't I asked you so far about what else you did to make sure that you built it? We talked about some people, some processes, right? This system of creating a media company to answer questions and to just build the awareness. What else do you feel like is pivotal to be able to build it to exit?
Yeah, so hyper focusing on the services that were the most profitable. So that's one of the things that I changed when I basically started the company up. I said, what are the most profitable services we could offer? Let's get really good at those. It was basically 3 different services, and we were offering additional services. I just started cutting them out, and I was like, you know what? They're not bringing the most profit. They're taking a lot of our time for the admins to answer questions and send documentation. So we hyper focused on the highest profitable services that we offered, and we got really good at those services. And then making content around that was super simple because it was only 3 services, and then also training my employees on those services was very simple because it was 3 services. It's like a limited menu, you know what I mean? And it's very easy to build a business when you have a limited menu and you have limited content and services to make content around,
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. That sounds great. Now let's take it to the moment you're about to exit, right? I know I was on your show just, about a month or 2 ago, and we were talking through this. And so you're in New Jersey, New York, New Jersey, California, they're the worst. Illinois for taxes, right? So take it to the moment you're at this big exit, you're finally there, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this tax bill is pretty big. Yeah. Like, what did you do? What didn't you do? What do you wish you would have done?
Well, 100% I wish I would have saw your content before I exited for sure, because I would have definitely utilized your service, and I plan on doing that. That's actually my goal for the next 5 years. I have a plan to exit this roofing business, and I'm going to 100% come to you for that exit because, New Jersey is the worst. I think it's the highest tax state in the country, and capital gains, they crush you. So I got crushed. It was unbelievable how much I had to pay to the government. It almost makes it not worth it, to be honest. It's crazy. It's like, like, I could have just worked a couple more years and just put that money, and use them like write-offs or whatever. But I didn't want to exit the industry. I was tired of it. I was in it for 20 years. It's not a super scalable industry. That's why I wanted to get out of it. It's heavy red tape, heavy licensing, heavy equipment. You needed specialized employees with licensing. And so it wasn't super scalable business. That's why I wanted to get out of it. But yeah, the goal is to grow this new roofing business, scale it, and then exit it, and then come to you for that exit. That is my plan for sure.
Awesome. If people want to learn more about that, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And just real brief, if you have Bitcoin, business, real estate that has millions of gains, or at least $1 million of gain, you want to build a capital gains tax exit plan so you don't have 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50% of that gain being crushed by tax. So $10 million exit, you could pay $2, $3, $4, $5 million of tax, or you can build a capital gains tax exit plan with our team, defer that tax, compound that wealth, and guess what? Use it for that next business venture, which is the best part for the entrepreneurs we serve. You're not boxed in with the capital. You can go start that next business venture, all tax deferred. You can also just invest into other investments and get passive income. You choose your decision. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Okay, so let's talk about this new company you're starting, right? And I think this is great that you continue to start new companies and you show people that they can scale and how they can do it. What is the new company and what's kind of the vision for the next 5 years?
Yeah, so as I was doing some consulting after I sold the business, I got into some consulting. I was helping other home service contractors with marketing and sales and finance and this type of stuff. And I came across the roofing industry through a friend of mine who was in solar. He had a very big solar company, and he started buying some smaller roofing businesses in my state in South Jersey, not my same market, but in the southern state. And I started helping with some digital marketing and some operational stuff, and I started to learn about the business model. And in New Jersey specifically, there's no permit requirement, no inspections, and 95% of the industry is a subcontractor model. So it's really you're like a general contractor for roofing, essentially, is what it comes down to. It's a marketing, sales, operations. And in New Jersey, there's 500 townships. And when in my last business, every one of those towns had their own rules and regulations when it came to the permits and inspections. And it was an absolute nightmare to try to organize all that. So this business model to me is very simple, and it's very scalable. You could take it pretty much anywhere. And yeah, I'm excited about it because marketing is one of my things. I love marketing, and I have a lot of faith that I'm going to be able to really scale this business to a decent amount of EBITDA, and I should be able to exit it for a nice multiple in the next 5 years.
Okay, excellent. Fantastic. Absolutely love that. AI, let's talk about AI for a second. Like, how are you using AI besides transcripts, right? And taking, creating questions and such. What else have you found? Like, okay, this is your go-to. Is it ChatGPT? Is it Gemini? Like, which ones are you finding the most useful for when you're in your business day to day?
Yeah, so I use ChatGPT the most, but I use all of them. I use Gemini. I mean, I like to play around with all of them, but I mean, I'm using AI so much to the point where my fiance is like, are you having another relationship? What's going on here? You're having a full-blown conversation with AI for the last 2 hours? Like, I literally will have a full-blown, text conversation, just kicking ideas around, even putting the whole launch plan together, this go-to-market plan for this business. I mean, it's just talking to AI and getting ideas and really just kicking things around with it it's absolutely a game changer, in my opinion. I mean, it's helped with everything from the content on my website to, putting the business plan together to, different ideas for marketing. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing what it's capable of doing,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't know where I'd be without it now. Like, I feel like it's been maybe about a year that this really kind of launched, and I'm just like blown away. And I found myself just geeking out about learning the new stuff and probably putting too much on my team members. I'm like, okay, I found another one,
Yeah.
Oh gosh, probably should slow down because it's so much, there's so much there. And so, awesome. We're running out of time. You ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 20-year-old self, Teddy, what's the one thing you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
100% focus on one thing and go deep, not wide.
Okay, excellent. Next question. Number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Simple Numbers by Greg Crabtree.
Okay, Simple Numbers. Okay, Greg. Excellent. Greg, check that out. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
Well, I'm most curious about the roofing space because I'm just launching this business, so I'm learning a lot, and it's a cool industry, and that's what I've been spending all my time on really right now.
Excellent. Next question. Number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Leadership quote or theme. again, I think it takes back to focus, 100% focus, and I'm telling you, that's what got me off track back then. And now I've been super focused on the last couple of businesses, and it's really just it's so telling, you know.
Love it. Sounds good. Yeah, I think really the last question here, which is kind of the center of what we're kind of talking about here, Build It to Billions, right? So we can give more all of it away. You know, this idea of stewardship mindset over ownership. And so how do you best, practice a stewardship mindset, Teddy, over ownership?
Stewardship. So I would say, I give phantom equity. So I've done that in my last 2 businesses, and phantom equity is something that I love because I like to bring people in. I want everyone to eat. It's not just about me and my family. I want everyone who's coming in and putting in that effort in my businesses to also eat at the end and have that liquidity event. So that's what I would say for stewardship for me is giving that phantom equity away and making people owners and like owners of the business as well,
I absolutely love it. Teddy Slack, everybody. For our listener, first of all, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Tons of wisdom here. We've dropped here in just 24 minutes. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, one last time, what's the best place to find you?
You can go on LinkedIn or YouTube, Teddy Slack. You'll find Modern Contractor TV. It's a podcast I have for home service companies that help with marketing, finance, leadership, operations. Awesome. Teddy Slack, thank you for being on the show. Also want to thank all of our listeners for listening to another episode or watching another episode on our YouTube channels too as well of the Build It to Billions podcast. We're also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channels as well. Hey, we're on this journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can get more all the way to help MVPs, the most vulnerable people. My name is Brett Swarts. I want to encourage you to take action today, scale your company in a way that it's built to exit. And before you exit, make sure you connect with us here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions to build a capital gains tax exit plan so that you can compound that wealth, be a great steward with it long term. Get with us, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Appreciate everyone listening, watching out there, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye now.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.